Could you please introduce yourself first?
Hello, everybody. I'm Wayne. I sing and throw balloons in the band called the Flaming Lips.
Yeah, there are a lot of balloons around us over here.
Yeah.
So it got something to do with you?
Well, we make it, I think an overtly, colorful celebration. I think in contrast sometimes to, I think our songs, especially of the last couple of years since like 1998, 1999, I think most of our songs are about death, but not death metal, and that sort of rah rah. It's really about somewhere in most of our songs is a profound sadness in a sense, and so I kind of go the other way, because if we're going to sing these sort of pathetically sad songs all night, I kind of don't want everybody just to walk out of the club and kill themselves, because then we'd have no audience after, if we've played everywhere. So I kind of go the other way and make it seem like just a giant birthday party. So we're singing about death, but we're really celebrating it as if it's someone's birthday party. And that's kind of my excuse to just go all out and make it as festive as I can.
But if I compare your last album with like the Soft Bulletin from already 3.5 years ago, you might get the feeling that this album is a little happier than Soft Bulletin, isn't it?
Well, I think in a sense it's more coming to grips with all that sort of existential, shit that people think about when they get older. They think about death a lot. They think about love, and they think about the meaninglessness of the universe. And I think in a sense, when you're first confronted with those things, sometimes people, especially, it depends on how young you are, but you really thrash at it and you sort of fight against it as if the world's trying to tell you what to do and you just refuse to. But as you get older, as I've found, that you kind of, once you accept it, you almost feel defeated by it. And I think there was an element of that with the Soft Bulletin, where you just sort of let the universe do with you what it's going to do. And I think with this record, this is sort of like actually enjoying that, It's sort of saying, well, if we are all indeed going to die, Frank, and if the universe is indeed meaningless and all that, so what? Let's find a way to make this a great time, despite all the horrors and the evil that exists in the world. Because if you want to understand what reality is, you do become kind of suicidal at some point. You say, gee, it really is, we're on one long path. The minute we're born, we're just walking into a long or short cave of death that's eventually going to get us and everybody we know. Or you're going to die some horrible disease, or you're going to see people die from horrible diseases somewhere along the way, or anything that you love or anything that you have can be taken away from you, or can be, And so,
which is kind of great in a way.
Well, it can be, but I think sometimes if these things are sort of thrust on you too much at one time, it can overwhelm people. And I could see why most people would just assume sing about having sex all the time, as opposed to, like me, singing about death all the time. Because sex is one of the great escapes from your existential mind, because for a couple of moments there, you're not thinking about anything except that thing, and it's a great thing. But see, I think with this record, the Pink Robots record, I do think you feel, in a sense, almost like we're saying, yeah, so what? So we're going to die, Frank. So what? Let's live. Let's make sure we are living the most that we can live if we are indeed going to die. Yeah.
We're going to die somewhere between 0 days and 100 years. So.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. So, but in a sense, understanding death allows you to understand living. Mm-hmm. And if you don't understand death, then you're not truly understanding what it means for yourself to be alive, or the people that you love, or your friends. And so I want to know. Even though I, don't like it sometimes, I still want to know.
Did you have any experience with, in this way, death close to you, or that always helps in thinking about life?
It does. Well, your experiences are the only way you can really know anything. I mean, I think reading about things, or seeing movies, or even hearing stories, they can all tell you something, but. It must be like being in outer space. You either have been there or you haven't, and we can all just imagine what it would be like. And so with myself, I was always fascinated by what it would be like to think, if someone close to you was to die. But luckily for me, it didn't happen until I was older. It didn't happen to me till I guess, what is it, like 6 or 7 years ago now, when my father died. And he got sick and died, and it took him a little while to die. And a lot of people around him, my brothers have been drug addicts and all these things for all these years, and you don't know what effects. Not only is the death going to have, that he's going to die, but what effects is it going to have on everybody else? And it's a powerful experience, And so I think I was lucky to have this experience and not to have it defeat me, and then come out the other side saying, oh, I have these things that not only do I not want to ignore them, I want to sing about them. And that's really become my whole second life as a guy who can insert my story into this great thing that music is. And I think people believe me or something,
Yeah, it always makes you one step older in a way, isn't it?
It does.
Those kind of experiences.
But it can go both ways. I've seen some people where it hardens them to the world so much that they never want to be nice or never want to enjoy themselves again. They just always want to be like, oh, I don't trust the world anymore. And I didn't want that to happen to me. I didn't want to be hardened by it. I didn't want to go out there and have experiences and come home and say, Frank, the world sucks. Don't bother. And the more I see of the world, the older I get, and the more I know about things, the better I think the world is. And maybe I'm insane.
We never know. We might hear that a little later, like 10 years later or something. Recording was spread over a lot of months.
Yeah.
How was that?
2 years, really, yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's a luxury or a curse that we have, but starting in about 1996 or 97, we started to record with Dave Fridman after he had built his own studio, and sort of let us have a little bit more leeway as to when we would finish. And instead of having to record it all in one big lump sum, we could sort of go up to his place and record for a couple of weeks and then leave for a month and come back for a couple of weeks, or even leave for a couple of months. And so we sort of do these spurts where we record something and then re-record it and rearrange it and do that maybe 100 times for a song, And I don't know if it would work for everybody, but it certainly works for me. I mean, there's been a lot of times in the past where we've recorded things and you like it at the time, but with a little bit of hindsight, you have this regret that we talked about earlier, and you wish you could change it. And now I do change it, and I try to work with it enough to know I'm satisfied with it, knowing that it's not the greatest thing that's ever been made, but knowing I've done the best I can, and it expresses something.
One of the sounds of Flaming Lips, which I know and I really recognize within half a second, are the drums.
Yeah.
Is that something you really thought of a few years ago, and then thought like, well, this is our basics. This is something we should use?
Well, only because I think Steven is such a great drummer. I mean, it isn't rare that drummers have a uniqueness, but he's such a good drummer that he can do things that you really aren't able to think of if you're not a drummer, because you just aren't aware of the possibilities. And since we're around him all the time, you really do see that, wow, there's a lot that you can do with just a fundamental rhythm and stuff. And really, even with like hip-hop music and stuff like that these days, there's so many cool ways that you can make these beats sort of fly around and all that it isn't just about, having a real drum kit even there. We use computers and all this sort of stuff now just to do anything that we can think of. And so, but a lot of it is based on, he is such a good, skilled drummer that you can, you get to peer into different ways you can do things. And yeah, I agree.
I got one question about one song, because that was, well, I think one of the greatest titles I've ever heard in a few years, like Ego Tripping at the Gates of Hell.
That is a great title, I know. And honestly, I didn't make it up. I heard the title. I believe it was the first time we came to Europe. We must have been traveling through Germany or something like that, and we were listening to the radio at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there must have been one of these deranged drug DJs playing some kind of obscure, crazy music. And we heard this thing, and we were listening. It's like, what is this? And I couldn't understand much of what the guy said, but I think he said the title was Ego Tripping at the Gates of Hell. And I looked for the record. I could never find it. I never, ever found a song called this. And then me and Michael, I mean, this was back in 1988, I think we heard this. And me and Michael thought maybe we didn't hear it right. Maybe we were hearing German or some other language and thinking we were hearing this title, since we could never find it. And eventually I thought, well, I'll make a song called that. And yet the song that we heard, I think, was more eerie, and it was more drug in a bad way. My song is really about the self-imposed hell of being an egotistical fool, which I struggle with a lot, because I catch myself obsessing about ideas and things like that, because I'm a stupid artist, and you get obsessed with these things. And I try to remember how how important everything in your life is instead of just these silly ideas. And that song is sort of addresses the idea of, to me, what is living hell as being an egotistical,
Is it so difficult to live with? Because in the end, everyone has something of some egoistic parts in his life.
Well, right, but I think that especially artists in our society, and the more successful you are, the more freedom you're given to be an obsessive freak, And so, because art is so valued, people think, oh, he's an artist, leave him alone. If he wants to paint his building pink, leave him alone. It's art, And it's a great obsessive, little outlet. But I don't know. I'm not always proud of that. I mean, I know I'm doing art and I'm able to make money at it, and it seems to do that give and take where the audience likes it when I reveal my inner turmoil to them. But I understand how it is sort of self-obsessive. You're talking about the inside of your head, And so I try to remember, I'm doing that, and then not to do it all the time or make it think that it should be important to anybody else. I mean, and when it comes to making our records, I do think it's a give and take. It's about this inner thing, but I do want to make it entertaining to you. If you're not interested in my inner struggle, at least you can sit there and say, I like the way the drums sound. Yeah,
Thanks a lot for this interview.
Well, thank you, Frank. Yeah.